happy when I get married in Lake Como, buy a Ferrari, and a penthouse in the city. Sounds familiar? Throughout the years, I noticed that the world is increasingly designed to cause depression. What is real can never be found outside of us. And the most common misconception about happiness is we think happiness is a finish line. But if you can't find it now, you struggle to find it anywhere else. So let's pause for a moment and ask yourself, why is true happiness not ideal for the economy? Let's be real. If we were happy with what we had, why would we need more? For instance, how do you sell an anti-aging moisturizer? You make them worry about aging. How do you influence people to go for plastic surgery? By highlighting their physical flaws that don't fit the conventional beauty standards. How do you get people to watch a TV show or buy the latest iPhone? By simply making them feel the fear of missing out. In fact, to be content and happy with what we have seems foreign in a world that's constantly chasing for upgrades, making you seek for validation in things that don't truly matter. Not gonna lie, I'm guilty for buying clothes every month and upgrading my iPhone every 1 to 2 years. As someone who always wants the best for everything, it may seem like there's nothing wrong with that, but that isn't the main point. It's the fact that I'm making impulsive decisions based on immediate rewards. And here's the secret no one tells you about. We often get caught up in the thrill of buying new things, but real joy comes from appreciating what you already own. Every scroll on Zara, every click on Apple Pay, these are not just distractions. They are rewiring your brain and reshaping your priorities. As we all know, the world today is designed to steal your focus. So if you can't control where your attention goes, you can't gain control of the trajectory of your life, much less your happiness. I may probably get a lot of hate for saying this, but being content and at peace with yourself would not be good for business. The economy relies heavily on media consumption and demand. For instance, if you're still using an iPhone 13 when the 17 just launched, your friends around you may ask, why aren't you changing to the new one? Let's be honest, most people tend to frown at the idea of using the same phone for many years. But if you really think about it, we all have been wired for instant gratification due to technological advances, leading us to make impulsive decisions and engage in impulsive behaviors. Our brain becomes accustomed to frequent small dopamine hits from meaningless things like checking your Instagram notifications or ordering McDonald's, just because it's quick and fast-free, making it harder to delay gratification for much larger future rewards. Most importantly, that's not real dopamine. Real dopamine is experiencing new things, exploring new cities, living in the moment with gratitude, giving back to society, wanting to grow and evolve mentally, emotionally, or spiritually, moving your body by going for a Pilates class or clocking in 10,000 steps a day and eating clean. At this point, you may ask, how is instant gratification linked to happiness? Well, the word dopamine is present in both terms, and this particular brain chemical is responsible for making us happy. But here's the difference. True happiness often relates to setting an intention and giving meaning to everything we do in life, something that's built on achieving a long-term goal or purpose, whereas instant gratification often relates to the fleeting moment of giving in to the little dopamine hits, creating a vicious cycle of constantly looking for things to stimulate dopamine in our brain. That's exactly why the world has become so bitter that we start to compare our lives with others on social media, and oftentimes we forget that happiness is something that can be found in the little things, like enjoying a cup of iced matcha latte or checking in on your loved ones. The truth is, we can't fully appreciate the gifts or rewards that come with instant gratification because it doesn't require much effort on our end to attain it. The process of instant gratification is in the term itself, instant. And let's be real, most people ever hardly value the things that are handed to them on a silver platter. The more we work towards building something of our own, the higher the satisfaction and fulfillment we achieve. Therefore, true lasting happiness can never be found in instant gratification. So you may ask, how do we move past something that's been ingrained in us for years? Well, we have to relearn what it means to be happy without attaching any conditions to it. In fact, the biggest realization for me was finding out that happiness has nothing to do with my circumstances. The truth is, happiness is a choice. There's always reasons to be happy, and there's always reasons to be unhappy. As soon as you learn to shift your perspective in any circumstance, you get to control the narrative and choose the right things to focus on. If you keep looking at what you lack, you'll never appreciate what you have. When you are consistently a happy person, you possess the ability to transform ordinary moments into joy, and you also make others feel good about themselves. Very often, what happens next is that they will always remember how you make them feel, and they may even begin to associate your presence with pleasure. Isn't that the most beautiful trait in a person? For those of you who are struggling to be happy, I'm not going to force you to be productive or listen to any motivational content when you're clearly feeling like shit. That's not going to work because you'll start resenting yourself for being lazy and unproductive. Trust me, sometimes I wake up feeling heavy for no apparent reason. Here's what I do to overcome it. I set a 30-minute timer on my phone and take myself out for a walk. At the same time, I'm holding space for myself to be present in the moment and reframe my thought process. With every step I take, I learn to regulate every emotion I'm carrying, from fear, guilt, or stress, and I train my mind to release it within 30 minutes. By doing so, I'm consciously putting my mind and body on a full reset mode. I became less anxious, less impulsive, and more in control of myself. And it's a lot easier for me to get back to what I'm supposed to do for the rest of the day. Yes, I may have wasted 10 hours today, but what I choose to do with the remaining 14 hours counts. By the way, do you know that an emotion only lasts for 90 seconds? I hate to break it to you, but anything more than that is self-inflicted. Once you're the master of your emotions instead of being a slave to it, you'll be able to let emotions flow through you by setting your own nervous system regulation. When you're happy, you perform better, you show up as your best self, you glow differently when you're actually happy. Over time, you'll start to notice the little micro happiness in your everyday lives. You'll be surprised how many of us are functioning on autopilot, often taking our lives for granted just because we get to live another day. Very often, we lose our excitement for life when we think that tomorrow will be the same as today or any other day. Based on the studies done by British Psychological Society, 90% of our everyday behaviors happened on autopilot, which not just conclude that humans are indeed creatures of habit, but we are also capable of forming good habits over a period of time and achieve our goals as a result. However, as we grow older, we tend to take ourselves too seriously and start to normalize all of our blessings, including our health, our homes, our jobs, and our relationships with others. On top of that, we often tell ourselves that we're too busy to slow down and appreciate the little moments in life, when it's honestly just an excuse to avoid uncomfortable feelings or ignore things that we're too afraid to confront, rather than a genuine lack of time. The belief that there is a future moment more worth our presence than the one we're in right now is exactly why we're miserable. And the thing is, everyone has 24 hours in a day. How are you going to show up? What are you doing with your time? If that's something you're still figuring out, it's okay. Take it one step at a time. In a world where people are rewarded for acting tough, we're often not taught to nurture our inner child just because we are grown-ups now, like as if we're supposed to take on another identity in society. Of course, being mature and responsible is part of the adulting journey, but it doesn't mean that our inner child disappears into thin air. In order to bridge the gap between your inner child and who you are right now, it all boils down to how you embrace moments of joy that you have probably taken for granted and maintain curiosity for how the world operates. Just like how you wouldn't ruin a child's Christmas by telling them that Santa doesn't exist. Now, let's talk about macro happiness that most people are not entirely aware of. It refers to your goals, your purpose, your fulfillment in life that translate to your happiness index. After all, ambition without action becomes anxiety. Trust me, I was the living proof of that. I have gone through phases where my anxiety kept building up every other day because I wasn't doing anything that's actually moving me forward. The fact that I was contented with just waking up to eat and binge watch my TV shows all day is absolutely insane. Until now, I find it hard to believe that, but I was in a slump for weeks, not knowing what's my purpose in life and questioning why I wasn't happy. It's like a constant battle between doing what's right and what's comfortable. Let's be real, all the doubts I had was because I wasn't confident that my purpose would bring me peace. So I would rather do nothing and not be disappointed. Let me give you an example. Imagine that I'm severely overweight from binge eating since I was 12, but I refused to see a specialist because I knew they would tell me to reduce my calories intake and exercise more to lose fat. Obviously, it seemed impossible for me to achieve. Plus, I was comfortable with where I'm at, so why would I change? I would rather not do anything about it. By not trying, I'm protecting myself from feeling the potential disappointment. Honestly, the reason why none of my goals were set in stone was because I did not have a system to fall back to, and that's something I have to learn the hard way. You may be shocked at what I'm about to say next, but you have to learn to be bored. Yes, you heard me. In order to appreciate what it truly means to be happy, you need to embrace boredom at its finest. It has to be intentional. Let's be real, watching CNN news or reading a book may sound boring to you, but it's still doing something. Being bored actually means doing absolutely nothing. You can be staring into blank space, people watching at your favorite cafe, or daydreaming at home. And I get it. Boredom may be unpleasant, leaving us feeling a little agitated and restless, but it's not a bad thing. In fact, boredom can be quite useful as it signals to us that our current situation may not be fulfilling our needs. But if you're constantly stimulated, like most people, checking their emails or social media every minute of the day, you're not giving yourself a chance to fully live in the moment and spark joy. In today's world where it's full of distractions and everything is driven by productivity, it's hard to find meaning in life if we don't slow down our pace with intention. It also further amplifies the emptiness within you, making you seek validation in things or people that don't matter. Just so you know, our minds are not capable of handling every single piece of information that's being fed to us. That's exactly why our generation is always under a lot of stress and anxiety because most of us wake up every morning doom scrolling on our phones, feeding our brains with too much useless information that's not helpful for our personal growth or success. Therefore, we have to learn to filter information that are necessary for our growth and eliminate those that take up too much mental space without uplifting us in any way. So it's either you adjust your algorithm by unfollowing useless content or set a time limit on your apps. However, the most practical solution for me is to turn off all the notifications, which was exactly what I did since the beginning of 2025. And let me tell you how liberating that feels. I've got a taste of mental freedom for the first time in years. But let's be honest, it's going to hit you hard at the start because you're going against your natural instinct to pick up the phone whenever you feel like it. In some cases, it may be extremely challenging if your mind has registered scrolling as a form of entertainment to pass time. But trust me, you'll thank me later for saving your ass from brain rot, a mental decline from overconsumption of low quality content on social media like TikTok. You may have thought that doom scrolling is all fun and harmless until you experience an overall lack of focus as well as the inability to think clearly due to mental fatigue and short attention span. Not only will it affect your judgment and decision making, you're disconnecting from your purpose, and that will take a toll on the way you feel, the way you see yourself, and the way you respond to life. The truth is, happiness is often tied to our peace, and our peace is often tied to how fulfilled we are. That's the universal truth. Hate the player, not the game. Perhaps we should ask ourselves, what is our role in society and how do we contribute to our community? It doesn't have to look fancy on your resume. You can be running a dog shelter or a charity organization for the underprivileged and not appear to be successful based on social standards. But you are genuinely happy because you have found your calling and it gives you a sense of fulfillment. When you're happy, life gets better and people are happy because of you. Here's the thing, if you aspire to be happy, you need to define your own version of success. And let's be real, success looks different on everyone, but they share one thing in common. No one talks about the sleepless nights, the fear of uncertainty, and the intentional sacrifices it takes to get there. You can't have it all without giving up on something. And sometimes we sabotage ourselves by imagining the worst case scenario in every situation. The reason why it feels realistic is because we rehearse it in our brain over and over again. We're taught that being realistic is almost equivalent to having a plan B because most plan A tends to fall through anyway. But have you ever thought about trying to rehearse the best case scenario until it feels possible to achieve every single time? Normalize it. Instead of constructing a plan B as if your life depends on it, why don't we give our all to plan A and detach from the outcome? I know how cliche that sounds, but honestly, every rejection or failure is redirection. Whatever is meant for us will never run away from us. What most successful people have in common is that they are able to choose uncertainty over certain misery. Stepping into the unknown doesn't mean that you are being reckless. It just means that you trust yourself enough to handle what comes next. If you're the type of person who needs answers all the time before making a decision, you'll always be stagnant. Instead of moving forward, you're intentionally choosing to stay stuck and telling yourself that there is no way out. Ultimately, life comes with ups and downs, and trusting in my ability to handle anything that comes my way has brought me so much peace. After all, happiness is a byproduct of peace, and peace is a byproduct of trust, and trust is built when you develop compassion for yourself. Ultimately, the key to happiness is emotional regulation. In fact, I would say that it's a moral obligation to master our ability to regulate emotions. Let's be real, if I'm perpetually unhappy all the time, most of the time it's a choice. Perhaps I have a problem with reframing my perspectives and I need to work on that. By the way, unhappiness doesn't just affect me, but everyone around me. The truth is, everyone wants to be happy, but we can't be truly happy without experiencing grief, frustration, or uncertainty. It's okay to feel whatever you're feeling, but don't beat yourself up over it. After all, there's no shortcut in life, but working on myself and having grace and compassion is the most loving thing I can do for others. There's literally nothing in nature that blooms all year long, so don't expect yourself to do that. Be kind to your own timing. Live your life in such a way that if you had a chance, you would do it all over again. Thank you for watching and remember to subscribe if you enjoy my content. Bye!